You guys, welcome back to another highly beneficial video brought to you by Man Time Fitness. Today we have the man right here, definitely not a myth. Amin Shaharli, one of the team nutritionists from Team Workhorse. How you doing today, bro?
Good, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbi Alameen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today's topic is gonna ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
Highly controversial, about to cause a stir in the community. Highly requested, highly controversial, a lot of contested opinions. Today's topic is gonna be marijuana or cannabis, as it's called. So just a little backstory on this herb that divides so much. So, like I said, it was used for centuries and millennia to treat a whole host of problems, from insomnia to nausea to, even to this day, has some medicinal applications in cancer patients and people who are going to pass soon, to help them with appetite, with chronic pain. However, in the last 100 years, it has seen a dramatic rise as a recreational drug that I wholeheartedly believe has destroyed communities, and is one of the reasons why there is decline and stagnation and lack of progress in some of our communities. Nowadays, the marijuana plant has been engineered to be highly psychoactive and to be highly addictive as well. So 100 years ago, we went from cannabis plants that averaged around 9%, 10% THC to now you have flower that is upwards of 30, 40% THC.
And why do you think that is?
I think that, big companies and individuals saw an opportunity. They saw something that had the potential to be extremely psychoactive, that would kind of be something like alcohol, but maybe with less side effects, something that would allow people to escape their problems, something that would allow people to just drown out their sorrows,
Right.
and their difficulties in life. And something that could be monetized, mass produced, and easily distributed within communities.
Okay.
Right? As opposed to your harder drugs that have a whole production process. You can it's very easy to grow cannabis, it's very easy to distribute it, it's very easy to transform it, and it has kind of spread all over, and it went from something that was used every once in a while, and you have to go to like a healer, to now it's so prevalent, and it has woven its way into the culture,
Right.
in the United States and all over the world. So just a preface, small scientific refresher, right? So what makes cannabis have its effects? Cannabis contains compounds called cannabinoids, right? Things such as your THC, CBD, CBG, CBC, CBN. These four right here are not psychoactive. They have some potential medicinal properties. However, THC is what makes it psychoactive. This is what gets you high. Nowadays, like I said, strains have been engineered to have high levels, almost excessive levels of THC. And this comes with a whole host of side effects and undesirable effects in general. Cannabis nowadays, there have been studies, whether these are mouse studies, these are human trials, these are preclinical trials, they're mechanistic trials studying how exactly cannabis impacts our physiology. And the findings are quite alarming. And to be quite honest, if you smoke weed, not only can it be killing your gains, but to all my dear brothers out there, it's also shrinking your nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have effectively taken what used to be eons ago a tool for recovery into something that is extremely detrimental to the body. So we're actually going to be diving a little bit into the hormonal effects of marijuana consumption, especially chronic sustained consumption. So the first thing is that studies have shown that marijuana consumption increases prolactin, PTH, serotonin, and estrogen, right? So, what are these four hormones? Prolactin is a hormone that is usually secreted in the pregnant woman to induce lactation. However, unfortunately, in men who consume marijuana excessively, they tend to have elevated prolactin, which is associated with low libido, which is associated with chronic fatigue, lack of motivation, lack of willpower, just in general, very complacent, very weak, very you know, just in general, men without that without that backbone, without that drive,
Hmm.
very feminized and complacent men. So prolactin is also an antagonist of dopamine. So anytime this goes up, dopamine goes down. That goes your motivation, that goes your willpower, there goes your drive to get shit done. Um,
And that's what's being provoked when you intake marijuana.
Yep. So excessive consumption has been linked to increased prolactin. And we're gonna go into the physiological effects of elevated prolactin. The second thing that increases is PTH.
Okay.
PTH is going to be a catabolic hormone. This is going to cause bone degeneration and
Mm.
muscle degeneration. So
Mm.
if you're an athlete and you're, looking at yourself and you're like, I have not made any gains. I'm actually getting weaker in the gym. My lifts are going down. I'm not making progress like I should. It's because your PTH is elevated.
And right there, right? Please forgive me for cutting you off, but one thing that we have seen over the last 10 years or so, right, is the increase in injuries and athletes, whether they be in the NFL or the NBA specifically, right? And we hear a lot of times that these same athletes that do consume marijuana, right, not only are they more distracted nowadays, obviously because they're making more money, but because of the marijuana not being tested within the athletes and it being so accessible now. So I think it's safe to say that there is a direct correlation between the two. If you have an athlete that is smoking significant or even moderate amounts of marijuana, they will be more prone to injury and lack of performance.
Of course. Well, when your hormonal health and your metabolic health is disrupted, you're putting yourself at risk of injury. So,
Mm,
like we're gonna look at the effects of what happens when all of these things are increased. So
hmm.
when we talked about prolactin, like you don't have that dopamine in you, so you're already operating at like 30% capacity because you
Okay.
don't have willpower, you don't have drive. You're gonna half-ass your training. When you half-ass your training, you increase your risk of injury.
Right.
When PTH is elevated, your metabolic health is completely skewed. So at the end of the day, it's like running a marathon and shooting yourself in the foot at the same time. Like
Mm,
you are self-sabotaging yourself. Serotonin, which people associate with like the happiness hormone, or like the kind of they associate this with happiness and serenity and all of this to a certain extent. However, chronically elevated serotonin is extremely inflammatory. It's actually associated with high risks of depression,
mm,
and other, psychiatric diseases. A lot of people who, you know, chronically smoke marijuana are also at an increased risk of developing things like psychosis, schizophrenia,
mm.
chronic hallucinations. Some
Hmm.
people,
I've seen it.
some people, some people
Well,
are
long
never
have seen it.
allowed to. Or some people aren't like never escape the trip.
Mm,
Some people stay in that their whole entire lives. They stay in that haze, they stay in that blur, they stay in it and they're not able to escape.
mm,
And it's very disheartening and sad, but some people are predisposed to psychiatric illness. A lot of people go crazy, they end up losing their minds because it is so concentrated in THC, it is so psychoactive to the point where they are changing their brain's internal microenvironment.
mm,
And you know some people, it can cause, after years and years, it can cause almost permanent damage.
mm.
Last thing that increases is estrogen, right?
Okay.
So estrogen is an essential hormone, whether that's in men or in women, but it's all about ratios. Too high estrogen, and you're going to develop side effects. You're going to develop heart problems, hair loss, fertility problems, libido problems, weight gain. Too low, and you're going to experience joint pain, irritability, sleep problems, and the like. So when we have chronically elevated estrogen, that is extremely, extremely detrimental to men, because estrogen and prolactin are actually antagonistic to testosterone. So effectively, you are chronically feminizing yourself every time you're smoking marijuana. If you're doing this every single day for years and years on end, it is probably one of the biggest examples and cases of self sabotage that you can do to yourself.
And I've seen it. I've seen it like in certain clients, right, that I train that lack the motivation, right? They're always looking for motivation, and they lack so much discipline. Well, a lot of them that do smoke the marijuana have a very poor performance in showing up. You know what I mean? And that's half the battle. So if you're like smoking on a regular basis, you are now putting yourself in a position where obviously it's going to make you hungry. So now you're going to be eating poor nutrient food that's not nutrient dense.
And at first it was used by cancer patients, because usually cancer patients have a hard time keeping food in. They suffer from nausea, so they would give them marijuana to allow them to eat. But these are cancer patients. These are people that have a high risk of dying in a couple of months.
Right.
This is not for your average person. This is gonna you're gonna go against your diet. Usually when people smoke, they have a fuck it attitude. They become
Mm,
complacent. They're like, it doesn't matter. Like, everything doesn't matter. All the discipline, like, they'll miss a job interview. They'll wake up late to work. And
mm,
the thing is, with marijuana, like, you stop caring. You become complacent. You
hmm,
become complacent, and you accept mediocrity in your life.
hmm,
Like, it's not like we're talking about physiological effects and hormonal effects, and how it affects the body, but the body and the mind are connected. So, you see these people, they'll smoke, they'll get the munchies, and they'll eat everything in sight, and there you go. All that progress and all that effort that you put into the gym just gone, because you were self-sabotaging yourself.
mm,
You have tried to make all these changes, but the one change that you should have made, you didn't make it. Now you're suffering the consequences.
mm.
And we're gonna go into the psychological effects and how it can affect you on like a more personal level, on a productivity level, on a even a societal and communal level. Let's go back to hormones.
Right.
So